Hello, welcome to the Weekly Review, a program of Sawa Network. My name is Roger Alfred Yoron Mudi. I'm the producer and host. Today we are joined by Duer Tut Duer. He is a senior member in the SPLM-IO, the SPLM in opposition, and he before served as the governor of the defunct Sobat state. He also served as Ulang County commissioner in Upper Nile state a long time ago, and he also served as the South Sudan Relief and Rehabilitation Commission chairperson. Today we will be looking at his views on the affairs of the SPLM-IO and the issues in the country. He has been a strong critic of Dr. Machar since last year. He called on Dr. Machar to step down, and he said he's taking over the SPLM-IO and many other things that we will hear from him. Welcome to the Weekly Review, not Doctor, but Duer Tut Duer.
Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and thank you our viewers or listeners for taking their time to follow this program. In fact, you put it right, because our people sometimes do not distinguish between the SPLM-IO and as an organization and Dr. Machar as chairman of that organization, because there is difference between the failure of an organization and failure of a leader of that organization. Yes, I have been criticizing the Secretariat since first months of 2020 for many reasons. I will mention few of them.
Yes, now that is since last year. Sometimes you said he failed, he should be removed, and many things. In summary, you tell our audience, our viewers, what exactly is the issue? You said SPLM-IO leadership has failed, and you're the right person to take over.
Yes, exactly. And this is what I mentioned. I said I'm going to mention some points, not necessarily all of them. In fact, currently, the revitalized peace agreement, the implementation of revitalized peace agreement is not progressing well. In first position, because Salva Kiir, the president, does not have the political will to implement the agreement. But the first person who brought us to this situation is Dr. Machar, because he went to Juba and decided to form the revitalized transitional government of national unity before the implementation of the security arrangement. So I see that Secretariat violated the Article 2.2 of the Axis. He abandoned the SPLM-IO forces in a miserable situation. He betrayed the spirit of the struggle of our fallen heroes and heroes and heroine, and he betrayed the cause of our struggle simply for sake of a redundant position of first vice president. Despite our fight against nepotism, Machar didn't hesitate to appoint his wife and the mother-in-law of his son as Minister of Defense and Minister of Health, respectively. And for this, and for his family reason and interest, he appointed his own candidate as the governor of Western Bahr el-Ghazal state. He uses the movement for his interest and that of his family. So we see the Secretariat turn the national movement into a family business. Despite the fact that we are fighting against injustice, Riek Machar has demonstrated injustice by appointing his deputy, Comrade Henry Duer, as a minister in junior ministry, while appointing more junior members to senior ministries. Despite the fact that the SPLM-IO is established all over the country and managed to mobilize strong and courageous fighters from all over South Sudan, we failed to achieve our objective due to bad leadership and weaknesses of Dr. Riek Machar. The SPLM-IO has facilitated the proliferation of many movements in the country, due to the defection of its members caused by carelessness of Riek Machar and his negligence of the concerns and grievances of his followers. But despite the fact that we have produced our basic documents, our institutions and structures are not functioning efficiently because Riek Machar doesn't respect nor work according to those documents. Riek Machar does not have friends in the region. He failed to engage the regional leaders on the challenging political issues and failed to engage the SPLM-IO leaders on the challenging organizational and structural issues of the movement. He organizes meetings, but he never implements the resolutions of such meetings. SPLM-IO failed to make friends in the region because the chairman, Riek Machar, isolated himself from the regional leaders due to his arrogance and bad political approach. This isolation affected the whole movement. Riek Machar did not show the willingness and the capacity of bringing all the opposition movement together. He is not a uniting factor, but a divisive leader. Despite the fact that we have a clear vision and mission that aim at establishing a federal South Sudan based on justice, democracy, and equality, we have been losing popular support because the people of South Sudan start to realize that the chairman of the movement was not fighting for them, but for his family and for his position as vice president.
Now, from all that you've mentioned, you said also you were involved in developing basic documents of the movement and also the constitution. This means you were supposed to have structures and even bylaws that regulate how the movement or the party take actions and issues of appointment included, yes, and all this. What happened that those issues have not been able to be resolved within the party internally, because parties are supposed to be democratic also within themselves internally?
That despite the fact that we have our basic documents, Dr. Riek Machar, the chairman, doesn't work according to those documents. All right. He pretends that he's a democratic person, a democratic leader, but only in words. Sometimes he gives you an assignment. He appoints you for a position, but he keeps the assignment for himself. So, as I said, that we organize meetings, but he never implement the resolutions of such meetings. These are our problem. Dr. Riek is a dictator, but he tried to pretend to be a democrat, but in fact, he's a dictator, but a polite dictator.
What about the rest of the people around? Because the party has many members, and there are members who are still supporting Machar, and you apparently is the most senior or the only person right now calling Dr. Machar a dictator and not respecting the internal constitution and the systems within the IO. What happened? What would be your opinion about the people who still go with him, people who still support him? Yeah.
Let me tell you this. Nobody has the right to say that movement belongs to him or he has right more than others. But what I want to say, when this SPLM-IO was established in 2014 in Nasir, from 2014 up to 2016, all the leaders of the SPLM-IO defected and joined the SPLM-IG. After the signing of the revitalized agreement, Dr. Riek Machar went in with a group of leaders. Majority of them went and defected. So Riek Machar went and recruited people in Juba. So I don't know who are those senior leaders with Riek Machar in Juba, because all of them, they joined Salva Kiir. They are now in the SPLM-IG.
What do you say?
And the few remain. They are holding positions and they are for their positions.
How about the future of the SPLM-IO?
So but secondly, the SPLM-IO remain in the bush. The one in Juba is not any longer an SPLM-IO because Riek Machar cannot be first vice president and is still calling himself a chairman of opposition. How could a first vice president oppose the government? That is the second man.
Well, it's the arrangement under the agreement that brings together the parties, opposition and the government to form the government of national unity.
No, but as far as the government of national unity is formed, there's nothing called opposition.
The agreement didn't specify that.
So the opposition remain outside. Dr. Riek should not call himself an opposition because the movement he is appointed as first vice president is a political party, part of the government, but not an opposition within the government.
What exactly is the future of...
Unless we misunderstood the agreement.
What exactly is the future of the SPLM-IO in your view, also taking into consideration the Arusha agreement on the reunification of the party? What happened to it? It is not being implemented. And is the SPLM-IO going to be a separate party in your view, or you are not even still, you are not sure of what is going to happen?
In fact, I'm sure of what is going to happen to the SPLM, who still remain in the bush. But for the SPLM of Riek Machar, I don't know what is going to happen there. But I'm sure of what is going to happen with us here.
What is that? Tell us what is going to happen.
We are going to have soon a new chairman, a new leadership that will reorganize and restructure the SPLM-IO, reform it to become a strong movement. And then with that strength, we will see now to take over power in Juba.
In one of your interviews with Radio Tamazuch, you said you did not want to involve the military in this disagreement that you have with the leadership of the SPLM-IO. You said you wanted to engage only the politicians because the military, if you engage them, may confuse the situation. Now you're saying you're going to have a new leadership of the SPLM-IO. And over the recent, developments, it's clear that, or people say that the Chief of General Staff and the Army are still in good terms with Dr. Machar. So how is it going to be possible that you will take over the leadership of the SPLM-IO, or you will have a new chairman?
In fact, I don't know what Dr. Riek Machar is in good term with the leadership of the SPLA-IO, because if they are in good term, they are not in good term, I don't know, because all what I know, Dr. Riek Machar was working all these years with junior officers and not with the chief of the staff, okay? If Dr. Riek Machar is working with junior officers and not with chief of the staff, and to prove this, recently, what brought that conflict? Riek Machar sent his Director General of Military Intelligence to one of the neighboring countries. They went and procured arms, and then they sent these arms to Tiger. That is the units of protection of Riek Machar. And the chief of staff was not even aware of that. All right? Now, if they are in good terms, why sending arms to their bodyguards without informing the chief of staff and without informing the sector commander of that area? That is the question that we are going to ask. Secondly, I said we are not going to involve the army because the Secretariat is working very hard to create tension between those who support us in the army and those who support him, such that the two groups clash, said that our program failed. But I don't want this to happen that way. And this is why I said last time, and I'm still saying it, that we want to leave the army alone. When we defeat Riek Machar politically, then we will be able now to command the army, but not now. The army is aside. We are doing this as politicians. And this one we talk always of SPLM-IO. We don't say SPLM, SPLA-IO, because we are doing this as a political fight between me or between us and Riek Machar. But if there is any necessity for a military confrontation provoked by the Riek Machar, then it is Riek who will face the consequences and not me. For reason I know.
The weaknesses or the challenges that come with parties that are revolutionary, as they say, or even parties in the sense that they are only recognized as parties through processes like peace agreements that are outside the legal framework that existed before. And then now you have a situation whereby you need the parties to be transformed from these movements into political parties in a conventional sense. So you find these are some of the things in the agreement, the revitalized agreement. If you were to reform the Political Parties Act as required by the agreement, you would be able to register political parties. And then some of those internal issues that you were raising, there are mechanisms there under the Political Parties Act, of course, after the reforms, you would be able to resolve those things peacefully. Now, there are no, even the IO is not a registered party as per the Political Parties Act. And,
the law.
Yeah, and as per the law, it's still outside the process. And what would you say in terms of the need to transform those movements very quickly so that they work like conventional parties, whereby there are democracies, there's democracy internally, and when there is a dispute, there are mechanisms to resolve them.
And in fact, this is one of the points, and I mentioned it sometimes back, and I will repeat it again today. When Riek Machar went to Juba and decided the formation of the government with Salva Kiir before the security arrangement, how could Secretariat transform the SPLM-IO into a political party, leaving the soldiers of the SPLA outside? Because if Secretariat become a chairman of a political party, he will not have right anymore to command this army. And if this army is not commanded by Riek Machar and they are not yet incorporated in South Sudanese army, who is going to be their commander-in-chief? This is the question, and Dr. Riek must answer it.
So,
because the agreement, what is stipulated in the agreement, the reunification of forces was supposed to finish in the first 8 months. It was extended, and the second extension, and the third. Nothing was done. And what is in the agreement was that after the reunification of forces, there will be no any other commander-in-chief beside the president of the republic. All right? But now the period, and also it is indicated that if the formation of the government come before the reunification of forces, also the same. So now the Terek is in Juba. He is calling himself commander-in-chief of the SPLA. Salva Kiir in Juba calling himself commander-in-chief of SSPDF. So the two have two army and they are in the same palace. What is the logic of that? And why IGAD also is allowed such thing to happen? If not because South Sudan become a terrain for play, a playground for the IGAD and also for Salva Kiir and Dr.
Well, Duer, you can also tell us your views in terms of, because the war also keeps getting complex. You have new rebel groups have been coming up, and don't you think everyone is now trying to keep the army around them so that they don't become irrelevant, since now the situation in South Sudan is that the people with the arms are the ones being rewarded?
Exactly, and this is in fact the game played by these two. Every one of them want to keep the army aside because it is not also the first time. It happened in 1991. Dr. Riek made a coup against John Garang. In 1997, he came and signed Khartoum peace agreement in Khartoum. He left his army there, and when he decided to leave Khartoum and join Garang, he went and get the army waiting for him. Maybe they want to do the same thing because if things become ugly in Juba, he will come and then join the army, but we will not allow him this time.
Well, let's look at the situation around the affairs of the country in general. There is corruption. We've seen recently even the issues of corruption coming up more and more, and the general assessment of the peace process and the effort to transition South Sudan to lasting peace and democracy. What are your views there? Because apart from the internal issues of the SPLM-IO, there's also the country and what is happening generally. What would you say as a political leader also?
In fact, as a political leader and as South Sudanese who love South Sudan and its people, all what I want is peace, but a genuine peace and a durable peace or sustainable peace in South Sudan. When we talk about peace in South Sudan, for me, it's reduced to a few things. Distribution of positions to the politicians, distribution of resources among the elites of the country, securing Hayat Amarat in Juba, but the rest of the country is not the concern of the leaders of the country. People are dying in Jonglei every day. Citizens are killing themselves. In Upper Nile, they are killing themselves. In Warab, in Western Barzan, nearly everywhere in South Sudan, citizens are dying. And the leaders are calling themselves leaders because they can eat 3 times a day, they can sleep tranquil without any problem, and they don't care what is happening to their people. When they talk of peace agreement, okay, let people outside kill themselves. But why we are now going to 3 years and those of UNIMIS are still there in UNIMIS? And the president and the vice president, the two who provoked this disaster in the country, are together in Amarat, but they are not doing anything much to convince the people of South Sudan that peace has come, because they are not for peace. When there is peace, you will be free, I will be free, and everyone will be free, and they will not be free as leaders. But since there's confusion, they are free, and we are not free. Coming to corruption, a country whereby the top leaders are corrupt cannot fight corruption. And corruption is fought when the guardian of institutions, the chief of the country, of the state, or the president of the country is anti-corruption. So for South Sudan to be free of corruption, Salva Kiir himself and Riek Machar must be the first to say now to hell with corruption. And the anti-corruption can be able now to fight corruption. But how could anti-corruption fight the corruption when those on top of him are not for that?
So
we cannot.
Go on.
All right, go on.
Yeah, regarding this our effort to really bring lasting peace and stop these issues of corruption and the rest. Your suggestions, because you mentioned also this thing that you're going to do within the SPLM-IO to take over leadership or to come up with a new chairman. Can you also give us details about that to our audience, how that is going to happen, how soon? Because you've been talking about even having a convention or something of that sort since last year, that in 2021 you were going to do that.
In fact, we have started since last year. And the removal of Riek Machar, we started since March 2020. All right. We are now going to 1 year and maybe 2 months or 3 months. But Dr. Riek has been leading a group or a certain ethnic group for nearly 30 years or 20 years. Sometimes they said there's Wundeng said this and all this. For us to convince people in order to accept the reality, it took us time. It was only recently that people came to realize that we were telling the truth. And in fact, the problem of SPLM-IO was not those generals who defected in 2015. The problem of SPLM-IO was not those elders who defected in 2014. The problem of SPLM-IO was not those who defected in 2016, but the problem of SPLM-IO was Riek Machar himself. Now people came to realize it. And as a proof, when we said, and those of and some generals came to join our ideas, Dr. Yek managed to procure arms for a group loyal to him in order to fight those generals who are criticizing his leadership. While we fought since 2013 or 2014, Dr. Yek never brought even a single bullet. But when it comes to his position, he brought arms. Dr. Yek want to remain as chairman of SPLM-IO in the bush, chairman in the SPLM-IO in Juba, and first vice president of the country. All right? He is elder in Presbyterian Church. He is the leader of Duer community indirectly or implicitly. And all this, we want to dismantle all these things. We have been doing it for the last 1 year and some months. Luckily enough, we have succeeded. So now, what we are going to do, as we said, a declaration will be out when times come. Dr Machar is removed. A new chairman with a new leadership. That leadership will reorganize the SPLM-IO. As I said, will restructure the SPLM-IO, reform the SPLM-IO. In fact, what we are after, we want to build a South Sudan, a new South Sudan, a federal South Sudan of socio-economic justice, which is called distribution and redistribution of wealth, development, and chances. A sure, just, and a modern nation. A South Sudan where all citizens live in peace, and all of them, regardless of their religion, ethnicity, occupation, state, or county of origin, would be given the opportunity to succeed and chance to shape their own future. Now, South Sudan that is greater and more important than individual ethnic community.
In case
we are going to build this country with a simple philosophy in mind, that South Sudan doesn't belong to us. South Sudan belongs to our future generations. We are here to build it, prepare it, clean it for them. And when they come, they will be happy to live in South Sudan, a beautiful South Sudan, and proud of us for having done that for them. We are not fighting for positions. We are not fighting for words. We are only fighting for legacy of having done something for our people, for our future generations.
In case you succeed,
and this South Sudan also for us also to fight this corruption. A system is going to be established whereby civil servants will have higher salaries than the political or constitutional post holders. Executive director in a county will receive higher salary than the commissioner. Because now all South Sudanese want to be politicians. Simply because when you are a politician, you have huge salaries, services, vehicles, and everything. And you are the owner of the resources of that ministry of that county. We want to change this. We give responsibility to the civil servant, and then the politician will be only policy formulators.
In one of the news reports out there, one of the SPLM-IO members said that you, Duer Tut Duer, lost your membership in the SPLM-IO National Liberation Council by the virtue of the fact that the states by then under the SPLM-IO, which you are also one of the governors, were revoked, and there is now 10 states in the country. There are no more 21 states, and that by the fact that the SPLM-IO stopped using the 21 states, now your people elected somebody different under that state that you were there, and you've lost your membership and the National Liberation Council. What is your response?
This is not true. I was not a member in Liberation Council because of by virtue of being governor by then. No. In fact, you are a member of the State Liberation Council by virtue of being governor of that state. These are called ex-officials at state level. But in the national level, I was elected by my people. And saying Now, the people of my county or my state elected someone different. When did this election was made? Because in fact, a convention is made this way. You start from grassroots. You elect the local leaders and you raise those going for county level. And then elect county leaders and you raise those going for state level. You elect state leaders and you raise those for national level. And then those of national level will go and elect their leaders. This is how it works. So what was done by Riek Machar is not even constitutional. But what I want to tell you also, the constitution of the SPLM-IO have 3 constitutions and not only 1. We dropped it, the constitution, Dr. Peter Adognyab and myself, we dropped it, the constitution, and that constitution was passed in paragraph 3. But when Dr. Riek went and found that there were things in that constitution, okay, that were not going with his will, he called someone called a leader, a governor by then, Wiyet Nathaniel, and he asked him to make certain modifications according to the will of Riek Machar. And when Wiyet went and did that, and things did not go the way Riek Machar wanted, in December 2016, while the advance team was going to Juba, Dr. Riek called his wife and Henry Duer to drop another constitution. So that now we have 3 constitutions. I worked with the constitution, we dropped it and passed, and not these 2 constitutions made by Riek and his people, and which we are not passed up to today. So there was no any new liberation council made, because what was done by them called conference. In fact, in the constitution we have convention. At the state at national level we call it convention. At county and state level we call it conference.
When parties that call for democratic reforms in the country are unable to be democratic within themselves, and even when the war erupted in 2013, the issue of lack of internal democracy within the SPLM was very big, dominating the problems that came. And so what do you see as a danger? What do you see as a danger? What I
realize, let me say this. In fact, when you talk of my CV, you talk only of being commissioner in Ulang, chairperson on relief and rehabilitation, and governor. There was a time also I was deputy secretary for finance and administration in the SPLM National Secretariat. And then in 2012, after 2013, I was acting secretary for administration and organization. I was in charge of administration of the SPLM Secretariat and the organization. All right. And when those meetings of political bureau and the National Liberation Council meeting in Juba was organized by my secretariat. I was the head of the secretariat. We even formed the committees for the organization of those meetings. All right. So I was there. In fact, what I came to realize when we came to Bush was that the Secretariat was even with the ideas of self, but he wanted to implement them himself. And to prove that to you, we were having election of Secretary General. We were having 2 candidates, and the 2 of them were from Bahr al-Ghazal. This is Duer Tut, and the second, this young man.
Agel Machar. Agel Machar?
Hello?
Agel Machar, who, the young man, right?
Yes, exactly. Agel Machar. The 2, when they want to contest, the Secretariat said, first of all, we don't want the 2 to make any debate because we know them. I said, yes, we know them, as Agel Machar and as Duer Tut, but not as people who want to take over the Secretariat, the General Secretariat of the SPLM-IO. Let them tell us their program. He said no. And in addition, he said, now there is nothing called secret ballot. We just raised hands and we asked him. Now, one of the problems that brought this war was that sulfur was saying that there will be election but not secret ballot. And you said, no, this will intimidate people. And now you want to intimidate us. It was after that quarrel that the Secretariat allowed people to go and have a secret vote. All right? So, in fact, people fought for no reason at all, because when they said Selfa was a dictator, Self is not more dictator than Riek. And in fact, what is bad also is that you want to fight dictatorship while you are even more dictator than the dictator. Two of them are dictators, but each of them want to dictate people himself rather than the other being the one to dictate. He's not.
Now, if you, in case you succeed in removing Machar from the SPLM-IO, while of course the agreement, revitalized agreement, specifically mentions his name as the first vice president, which means he can still maintain that position of the first vice president. What is going to be the effect? What is going to be the effect? What is going to be the effect of that removal in terms of your affairs as a party, and also in terms of running the peace agreement?
Let me tell you this. We are not against the peace agreement. We are against the leadership of Riek Machar. Riek Machar will remain there as first vice president. We have nothing to do with this redundant position of first vice president. We want only the chairmanship of SPLM-IO left by Riek Machar. Riek Machar will remain as first vice president. We have nothing to do with it. All right? Let Riek Machar remain as first vice president, but the SPLM-IO that remain in the bush should be led by a different person, but not by Riek Machar. But the first vice president, Riek Machar as vice president, because this is his normal, we have nothing to do with it. Let him continue with it. There's no anybody from among us who want to be vice president.
And also, give us some hints. You know, you are the person who has expressed interest to replace Machar in the party, in the SPLM-IO. Who else? Do you know of others who also want the same position?
There is difference between saying I want to replace Riek Machar. I have interest and I have taken decision to remove Riek Machar. But to take the chairmanship of SPLM-IO is a different issue altogether. My role is to remove Riek Machar because there was no courageous person enough to take this initiative. I took the initiative. But who is going to be the chairman is a different issue. I'm not fighting to be the chairman of the SPLM-IO, but I'm fighting to remove Riek Machar from the chairmanship of the SPLM-IO.
But sometimes you say you are competent enough. Sometimes you say you are competent enough to take the position. Sometimes you say you want the position.
Yes, I'm competent enough to take the position. All right, but my fight now is to remove Riek Machar from the chairmanship of the SPLM-IO. When I remove him from the chairmanship of the SPLM-IO, okay, I will take the position. If others said, okay, you take it as they are saying it now, because majority of them are saying they bring my name up simply because others have been silent all this time. Okay, they are with me. There are even people in Juba, all right, in the side of Secretariat and also in the side of Sulfur, who called me with WhatsApp and telling me that we are with you, we support what you are doing, all right, but they don't want to reveal themselves now. We have a very huge support. In Juba, we have support. And in other places, and in diaspora.
Well,
we don't mention people, and we will never mention them until time comes.
In conclusion,
they will mention themselves alone.
We are ending the program. You give us your final message, your final view, your final thoughts.
Yes. In fact, what I want the people of South Sudan to know, we are for peace in South Sudan. We have been fighting for it because when we fought this war, it was not in fact our making. It was imposed on us by the regime and by circumstances. If the peace agreement is signed, we want this peace agreement to be implemented in letter and in spirit. But now it came to our knowledge that Self doesn't want this peace to be implemented, and Riek Machar doesn't care as far as he got his position of first vice president and the position of Minister of Defense for his wife. So let the people of South Sudan know that we are for peace. But the problem, those calling themselves their leaders are not for peace. And this is why they are still suffering after 3 years in UNIMS. And this is why up to now, they are still killing themselves in Warab. They are fighting in Nasser, because I mentioned, I had the president talking and mentioning people fighting in Akoba and Nasser, but not only these places. And they were fighting in Nasser, like in Ulang and other places, was provoked by people from Juba. And if in long run investigation is to be done, it will appear that it may be from the office of Secretariat, because he sent a team to Ulang, while those of Ulang, they fought sometimes back 3 times, and they stopped fighting. They were only cultivating their schemes, their farms, and now a team was sent, and 1 week after, those people start fighting themselves while they stop fighting that. So that team went to Juba with orders from the Secretariat, taking peace. And how it come that people who were not fighting, now the team arrived and fighting is started. So we want South Sudan to be peaceful, and in fact it is sometimes shameful, because when we call ourselves leaders of South Sudan, we are leaders of South Sudan. South Sudan is rich of human resources, it's rich of natural resources, yet it is UN feeding the people of South Sudan. It is UN protecting the people of South Sudan, and yet we call ourselves proudly that we are people of South Sudan. No, we are ashamed of South Sudan and not people and not leaders of South Sudan.
Do you have some hope for peace anytime soon, for lasting peace?
Lasting peace, as far as this group is still there will be no peace.
Hello? Well, we have lost the connection with Duer Tut Duer. With that, we can conclude. See you next week. My name is Roger Modi. Thank you for watching, and follow us on Facebook, social media, Facebook and YouTube, and stay in touch with our programs. Bye for now.